Prostitution was a term used in the ancient world to describe a group of women and men who provided sexual services outside of the bounds of ancient society's legal regulations. The word prostitute comes from the Latin word prostituere, which means to expose oneself in public. This was a reference to the way Roman prostitutes marketed in order to avoid being mistaken for good matrons. Depending on the context and translation, the English words harlot or whore are sometimes employed in ancient texts. In today's video, we will be discussing the history of brothels and prostitution in ancient times. Yeah, you heard it right. So, stay with us throughout the video. Now, let's start, but before beginning, kindly like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell icon so that you do not miss the latest video updates. So, let's get right to it. According to anthropologists, prostitution did not appear to exist in what were formerly referred to be primitive communities. Before the arrival of the white man, there was no sex for sale among the Australian Aborigines. According to the evidence, there were no brothels in communities ranging from the ancient Kimri people of Wales to newly found tribes in Burma's jungles. Prostitution appears to be linked to what we refer to as civilization. The first documented examples of women selling themselves for sex appear to be in temples rather than brothels. Prostitutes were persons who had intercourse for the sake of religious ritual in Sumeria, Babylonia, and among the Phoenicians. Sex in the temple was thought to bestow unique benefits for both men and women. But that was not the same as doing it for the money. There was plenty of that in the Bible, though prostitutes in the Jewish scriptures seemed to work from home. Such as Rahab, the prostitute in Jericho who aided Joshua's spies and identified her house with a scarlet rope. The origin of the red light, though it could also be the red lanterns performed by railroad workers left outside brothels while they were inside. Ancient Egypt appears to have been the birthplace of the first brothels. According to some historians, prostitution did not become prevalent until Greek and Mesopotamian travelers arrived. However, dancing ladies and musicians were utilized to entice men into brothels during the reign of the later pharaohs. According to Herodotus, a Greek prostitute named Ropapis was so wealthy in Egypt that she constructed a pyramid with her earnings. The Greeks, however, were the ones who initially established the brothel as a legal entity. In the 5th century BC, the famed Athenian politician and lyric poet Solon established state brothels and taxed prostitutes on their earnings. They were staffed by hetairai, which referred to female companions who varied from slaves and other low-class women to upper-class ladies. Sex costs 1 obol, a sixth of a drachma, or the equivalent of a day's wage for a common laborer. You received intercourse for that, but no oral intercourse, which Greek women disliked, despite hetairai being sometimes punished for rejecting. The Romans were a sex-obsessed people. Few languages are more pornographically rich than Latin, which has hundreds of names for prostitutes and other sexual practices. In pubs, waitresses generally marketed sexual services. Prostitutes set up shop under the arches of the circus. The police registered official prostitutes and monitored their actions. For a respected guy, renting a brothel was a legitimate source of money. Not all brothels were created equal. The brothels in the city's 2nd district were filthy, while those in the Peace Ward were lavishly furnished. Hairdressers were on hand to fix the damage caused by romantic fights. Water lads, or aquarioli, waited with bidets for ablution at the door. The better prostitutes had a huge effect on Roman hairstyles, clothing, and jewelry. The homes had a priapus symbol in wood or stone over the door to encourage trade, which was often painted to imitate nature more precisely, as one ancient historian gently phrased it. Several similar advertising standards have been discovered in the remains of Pompeii, where a vast brothel known as the lupanar, a type of sex worker noted for their tongue skills, was discovered. Among the fossilized ruins were what our careful historian referred to as devices utilized in fulfilling unnatural lusts, which, in favor of our current morals. It should be noted that deciphering the secret of the right use of some of these instruments took considerable study and thinking. The ambivalence regarding the brothel, the desire to license and regulate at the same time, persisted until medieval times. Prostitution was permitted because it was seen as a necessary evil to avoid the more serious crimes of rape and sodomy. Prostitution, according to St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, was a necessary evil. A well-ordered city required brothels, just as it required excellent sewers. The state, city, or prince had control over the medieval brothels. The ground rules had been established. Brothels were only found on certain streets. Only clerics and married men were permitted to visit. Prostitutes, who were required to dress in distinguishing garb, were permitted to operate only outside the town walls but not within. Repentant prostitutes were housed in special facilities. Public brothels were erected in places as diverse as Sandwich and foreign communities like Hamburg, Vienna, and Augsburg. Such regulation systems persisted in many areas for 3 decades until a syphilis pandemic ravaged Europe in the 16th century, forcing the closure of these official medieval brothels. The selling of sex had become increasingly diversified by Elizabethan times. Southwark was London's red light district. Because of their beginnings as steam bath homes, brothels were sometimes whitewashed and referred to as stews. Prostitutes, on the other hand, were busy at the theaters. Philip Henslowe and his son-in-law, Edward Allen, were well-known theater impresarios and performers who ran a thriving brothel. In 1546, Henry VIII attempted but failed to shut the bawdy houses. Some were moated and had high walls to withstand attacks. Again, the Tudor whorehouse catered to both the affluent and the poor, according to one 1584 description. A young man could have to pay 40 shillings or more at a brothel for a bottle or two of wine, the hug of a painted strumpet, and the French welcome. However, by the end of the 17th century, the French in Paris were insisting that prostitutes undergo medical examinations, wear a distinctive garment with a badge, and reside in a licensed brothel. Many people agreed. In 1724, a Dutch doctor in London, Bernard Mandeville, offered a defense. Others, though, were not pleased. Prostitution was forbidden in Vienna in 1751 by Empress Maria Theresa, who enforced fines, imprisonment, flogging, and torture on violators. She outlawed female attendance in pubs and short clothes for all women. Throughout history, there have been many people who have fought to make the trade illegal. In 1254, Louis IX of France ordered that all courtesans be expelled from the land and stripped of their money, belongings, and, this is a bit of a stretch, even their clothing. When he embarked on the Crusades, he demolished all brothels, allowing prostitutes to mingle freely with the general populace for the first time. Not long after Marie Theresa's purge, Tsarina Elizaveta Petrovna of Russia ordered hunt and catch all prostitutes, both Russian and foreign. Tsar Paul I, her successor, ordered that anybody apprehended in Moscow or St. Petersburg be deported to Siberia. The mayor of Portsmouth did the same thing in 1860, sending all of the city's prostitutes out on the streets. But after 3 days, the situation had deteriorated so badly that he permitted them to return to their previous quarters. In 1891, identical scenes were played out in Pittsburgh and New York. Prostitution was formerly allowed in the United States, but between 1910 and 1915, it was illegal in virtually all states, owing to the influence of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which was prominent in the prohibition of drugs and was a significant factor in the prohibition of alcohol. But, like boozing, whoring thrived, with brothels opening and shutting on a regular basis and women rotating between prostitution and chorus girl jobs in the brothels that spanned West 39th and 40th Streets in New York City. In the subsequent years, the situation has remained the same, with many nations fluctuating between tolerance and repression of the sex business. In 1885, the regulated city of Rotterdam had more prostitutes and venereal illnesses than the unregulated city of Amsterdam. Denmark abolished regulation in 1906. Amsterdam adopted it in 1911. In the 1920s, brothels in Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy were outlawed. After 2 centuries, Paris closed its brothels in 1949. The issues they attempted to fix, trying to protect public morals, attempting to control sexually transmitted infections, improving health and working conditions for prostitutes, reducing women's exploitation, and the sex slave trade, are not amenable to common solutions, so neither the liberally interpreted nor the prohibitive approach is successful. So, that was all about the history of brothels and prostitution in different ancient societies. That's all about today's video. Let us know that how was today's video in the comment section below. I hope that you find this video informative. If you found this video informative, do like and subscribe, and don't forget to give comments and provide us with your valuable feedback. See you in the next video with some more information and facts, and until then, stay tuned too.